During the course of this presentation, we'll cover periodic engine and chassis maintenance, engine removal, engine overhaul and component reconditioning, and engine assembly. We'll also cover carburetor service, electrical systems operation and troubleshooting, and we'll finish up with fork rebuilding. During this portion of our program, we're going to take a closer look at these constant velocity downdraft carburetors, and we'll show you the important points of carburetor rebuilding. Internally, these carbs are quite similar to the side draft versions used on most Yamaha street bikes. Other than the relocation of some components to accommodate the downdraft design, the function of the various circuits is standard. We covered the removal of the carb assemblies during engine removal. Now we'll show you how to separate the carbs, rebuild them, and reassemble the unit. Before you start disassembly, use a permanent type marker and number each carb with its cylinder number. You should also have enough space to lay the components out in order as they're removed. Disassembly starts with the removal of the two fuel transfer lines. Next, loosen the enricher lever screws and remove the linkage shafts and link rod as one unit. After removing the circlips from both ends, the synchronizing rod, which is the link between the left and right carbs, can be set aside. Then remove the forward and rear main brackets and separate the left and right side carb assemblies. Once the two remaining brackets on each pair are removed, back the synchronizing screw out, remove the cushion spring, and separate the carbs. Before we go any further here, let's have a look at the two areas where these downdraft carbs do differ from the side draft versions. Since this downdraft design requires that the throttle slide be horizontal, a portion of the vacuum chamber sits below the point where fuel enters the venturi. Consequently, small amounts of fuel can gather in the bottom of the vacuum chamber. To overcome this problem, these carbs, like those of the XV500, are fitted with two purge circuits, one venting the atmospheric side of the chamber, the other venting the vacuum side. Airflow through these passages is limited and dampened by these purge jets. Now, the second and most important difference is the use of deceleration enricher circuits in all four carburetors. Backfire during deceleration can be controlled by richening the fuel-air mixture when the throttle is closed. To accomplish this, a vacuum-controlled valve is used to momentarily restrict a portion of the air normally routed to the pilot circuit. In these carburetors, air correction for the pilot circuit is handled through two separate passages. In addition to the standard air correction jet located in the bell mouth of the carb, there's a second air jet located in the diaphragm chamber. During acceleration and cruising, when manifold vacuum is at a low to moderate level, part of the air required for the pilot circuit is drawn through this passage. During deceleration, if the throttle is closed suddenly, the increased manifold vacuum will pull the secondary air correction valve closed. Airflow to the pilot is reduced, and the fuel-air mixture becomes richer. Disassembly of the individual carbs is straightforward, but you will need the special Yamaha Torx drive tool to remove the tamper-proof screws from the vacuum chamber caps. Remember, when you're cleaning the carb bodies, every passageway, including the air correction circuits, should be cleaned. Remove each jet and carefully inspect the metering holes, making sure they're not restricted. Check each component for wear and pay special attention to the main jet needle and nozzle. If the surface of the needle appears worn, replace it. A worn needle and nozzle will severely affect mixture strength at cruise speeds, and fuel economy will suffer. During reassembly, make sure the gasket and O-ring between the jet housing and carb body are in place. And don't forget to install the rubber plugs over the pilot and main fuel jets. If a change in fuel height setting were required, now's the time to do it. Using your fuel level gauge as you normally would and a remote fuel source, verify that the fuel level falls within the specified range. In this case, that's 14 millimeters below the center line of the vacuum chamber. When fuel height has been corrected, drain the fuel from the carburetor. Providing you've laid the pieces out in order, assembling the 4 carbs back into one package will be quite simple, so we'll just run through it quickly. After installing the lower bracket to one carb, fit the cushion spring and push the linkage arm into place. Install the remaining bracket screws, but don't tighten them completely yet. Installing the synchronizing rod now, rather than after the main support brackets are in place, makes getting the circlips in a little easier. Install the front main brackets and the 2 top brackets. Again, don't fully tighten the screws. The enricher linkage must be positioned as shown here if all the pieces are to fit properly. Install the lifter arms in a 3, 1, 4, 2 sequence as the linkage is being pushed into place. Finally, before tightening the bracket screws, set the assembly on a flat surface and verify that the carbs are in proper alignment. The factory recommends Loctite be applied to all bracket screws. If you're using fast-curing Loctite, you'd best do 1 screw at a time after the alignment process is complete. And that's it for the carburetors.